Competition Act side of it, but they normally are trying to come together and dominate the market and get a major market share. Sorry, and apart from that, it otherwise happens that a major booming company takes over a smaller company, and that is how we understand acquisitions or takeovers. We actually look at the factor that a major company is taking more shares in that particular smaller company and how it can actually help that company to come over in its creative value. But the most essential to understand is the established relationship between the strategic business partners. The most important is to secure finances, to divest the assets of the company, to understand the intellectual assets, which I would come in a second talking about the human capital. If you do not analyze and understand the human capital throughout that merger or acquisition, doesn't matter what you're talking about, it's going to fail, because that's very, very important. I just want to convey this because I found it very, very funny. When I was thinking about this topic day before, and I was doing some search online, I came across this very interesting article which talked about this American manager who was, I don't want to name anyone, but he was an American manager in 1998, and he was actually involved into taking over a very important small financial service company. And when he was asked, very interestingly, that, sorry, sir, but why are you so much into the pursuit? Why do you actually want this takeover? Because it's not going to make much difference to your company. He said, I don't know how much you know about this American style of talking, but he said, shucks, fellas, that's the way they normally approach when they are in a confused state of mind. And they said, shucks, fellas, everybody else has got it. So the approach today, when we actually talk about mergers and acquisitions, is that, because I'm a big company and that's a small company, if everybody else is getting into acquisitions or mergers, why not me? If I'm not doing it, the ideology is that maybe I'm not that, high-fi, or maybe I'm not at the height of actually being able to get into a merger or acquisition, for that matter. Getting through that area of corporate development, it's also essential to understand how mergers and acquisitions are related to it. Mergers, as I mentioned, could be done through various reasons. It could be because you want to expand your company. It could be because you want to increase your market share. It could be because a corporation thinks that it's at a peak point to actually become into a larger corporation. And due to all these reasons, a merger could come into place. Normally, we have seen recently, I think, I'm glad that I'm not going into details of Coke, Pepsi, or ONGC, because there are some really great experts sitting over here. But we have seen that normally, when we are talking about mergers and acquisitions, earlier it used to happen that people used to take over a particular business. Now, the ideology is shifting. People are looking at the supply chain. If I am, for example, I'm just going to go into hypothetical details. If I make Pepsi, and I'm a cold drink company, and I want a bottle plant because I've got such a sale, people are actually getting into mergers and acquisitions in such a way that I'll open up my old bottle plant, or I would actually take over a bottle plant so that my overall income or my revenue or my assets have doubled. Why? Because now I do not have to pay someone else to actually get into it. But this is a very essential merger and acquisition people kindly ignore. And I feel sorry that people don't actually analyze that side of the sector, which is very, very important. So this is another very important thing I think I should mention here. It normally allows the market to give a dominant hand. It gives you a free value. You can do whatever you want, as Mr. Majumdar and Mr. Sharma has also discussed earlier. You come into a you can deal with the prices the way you want. You can deal with what you want in the market. You get a strong hold, and you hardly have people to interject you. And then is the role of the laws, the company laws, the competition laws, and other bodies which comes into place. I'm not an expert in the field, so I would not get into details. I'm saying it again and again. Next, I would actually like to talk about the role of senior management when any acquisition or merger takes place. Again, I'm relating it back to the ideology of corporate development being a very, very essential part of it. Role of the senior management at the time of a merger or acquisition is to make sure that they know the potential of what they're getting into. They should know what they're dealing with. They should know the position, and they should be able and capable to collide that integration. When Mr. Majumdar mentioned about the integration of the corporate cultures, why are people in Europe facing problems? When you were giving example of Tata Tea, I was going to come into that, but I would not in detail now. Tata Tea has faced problems. Why? Because they completely forgot to analyze the difference between the corporate cultures. And when you ignore such an important aspect, no matter what, you're going to face problems. No company can actually deal with such scenarios, no matter whether it's Reliance, Tata, Birla, whoever. It's got to analyze the strategies of corporate development. You follow those strategies, and it's going to be successful. Overseas mergers and acquisitions, how are they very important in regards to corporate development? I personally think when we are talking about national mergers, the corporate development sector could be slightly ignored, because we know our mentality, we know how we deal with, we know our business strategies. Nationally, it's not a big issue. When we talk about overseas mergers and acquisitions, it's very crucial. It's crucial because we need to know that we are dealing with different cultures, we are dealing with different business strategies. We should be really thankful that we are having, we really have these premeditated, pre-established corporate development strategies in the market today. If I am a company and I want to get into a merger, I can actually get a handbag telling me what are the points, You can tick across what are the points you should actually look into. You've got so many corporate training sectors that people can just go into, get a pack, and they can have their checklist. Okay, if I go through all these points, my merger and acquisition is safer than other bodies. So that's something very important people are completely not dealing with. Coming on to, I don't really want to drag this because I really want Mr. Naseem to talk and I want to hear him say a few words, but overseas acquisitions could be very, very fruitful. They could be very, very essential for any developing economy. China is getting into various mergers and acquisitions. They talk about automobile, they are actually booming into mergers and acquisitions. Talk about pharmaceuticals. India, at the moment, name any sector, and India is into it. Specializing, I think people are not very much aware, but software and service sector is another area where mergers and acquisitions are taking place. And service sector is becoming very important when it comes to mergers and acquisitions in India and the subcontinent and the countries, the developing countries around it. Be it transportation, transport equipments, be it non-electric machinery or anything, we are into it. So India, if we think about it, is at a boom, and so are the other developing economies. However, there are certain tools and techniques which I just briefly want to mention about corporate development. If we take care of them, then we are halfway through our mergers and acquisition practice. Talent retention, you need to know what sort of people, what sort of human capital you should deal with, what sort of human capital you should retain with, who should be assigned what work to get the maximum benefit of it. So there are all these points if we look into while getting into a merger and acquisition, no matter which country we belong to, no matter which country we actually approach to, we are going to have a very successful acquire, or we're going to have a very successful merger. And that's the ideology I personally think. As an individual, I think India and Indian corporations or any other developing corporation needs to understand these strategies. They need to understand that the pre-understanding of potential cultural differences and all these smaller things which are normally at the background, but they're very, very essential. If these points are taken care of, we can do wonders in the world. Thank you.
Now, I will request the chairman, Mr. M. Naseem, who is an expert in acquisition, to deliberate on this subject.
I am not an expert, but I will try to share my experiences. She has outlined a very good thing, that is culture. You must know the culture of the buyer to the extent that on a particular occasion, what color of flower you should to the offer to the party or to the other party. You must know the culture to that extent. It is necessary. Otherwise, you must know their culture, the country, because it is relating to overseas and it is relating to this corporate development. So you must know their culture. That is very, very important. Otherwise, at the very first meeting, they will develop a dislike for you, and actually you have to do the negotiation, and negotiation starts with personal relationship, development of personal relationship. And I tell you that in Arabian countries, they give more preference to personal relationship, knowing you as a person, because their basic concept is that corporations are run by persons. Corporations are not run by those people who are not individuals. So first day they will start talking how many children you have, what they are doing, and they will go on discussing. You will think they are fools of first degree. They are not talking about the transaction, they are talking about the children, your personal thing. People will come, they will start discussing the personal problems of those people who are coming, because they give more emphasis to understanding you as a person who is representing a particular company. Now, so far as this acquisition is concerned, there are various ways of acquiring property abroad or within the country. I have seen that in all the debates, we restrict ourselves to merger and acquisition. I don't think that people are not understanding the basic thing. Actually, acquisition is the basic thing, that you are acquiring something. Now there are various ways of acquiring. One is merger. You merge the entity in your own entity. Second is taking shares, transfer of shares. Shares may be majority shares or it may be some percentage of shares. Third is taking over a particular company. You don't merge that company in your company, but you keep that company separate entity overseas. And there is another very important aspect and this acquisition process, and that is, you might be knowing about contractual joint venture. And in case of contractual joint venture, there is no company, there is only a contract. And you take participating interest in that particular contract. No shares are transferred, no company is taken over. You take only participating interest in a particular contract, which is a joint venture contract. So, without transfer of share or without merger or without takeover, you can acquire a property overseas by taking participating interest in a ongoing project or in a new project. Now, so far as this, what are the, from the side of buyer, if you see, buyer in particularly in oil business, it is a risk business. Why it is a risk business? Because you don't know the geology, you don't know what is underneath, you just speculate. So there is a risk of finding oil or not finding oil, and up to the stage of knowing fully that whether oil is there or not, you already have spent at least crores of rupees on that. Then the first question is whether oil is there. Even if you find the oil, thereafter next question is whether it is commercial or not. You might have found the oil, but it is not commercial, so you don't take out, because you are a commercial, you want to make profit. You don't do it for the sake of itself. So these are the aspects which must be kept in mind so far as any debate with respect to this acquisition of property overseas is concerned. Now, so far as oil and gas property is concerned, generally owner is the government. So you have to deal with the government, and you be very cautious while you are dealing with the government, because government is government, and it has been said by somebody